So now we're going to take a look at systems of equations. So in many cases in physics, it takes more than one equation to arrive at the solution. In general, for every unknown you have, in this case we have x and y as unknowns, you need one equation for each. So because we have two unknowns in these equations, x and y, I need two equations. Now, when you do this in math, it's kind of nice because they will give you the equations on the paper. In physics, you'll often have to make your own equations using Newton's laws or conservation of energy, or you'll have to pull equations that are relevant from the formula sheet. So just figuring out which equations you need to use can be tricky. But fortunately, once we have those equations, it's really just a matter of algebra. And you treat all the variables just the same as you would x and y. So that's why we're going to start with just looking at x and y. So what I tend to do is I choose one of the equations and I solve this one equation for one variable. So I look at my equations and figure out which one of the variables is easiest to get by itself. So I've got a 3x and a 2y over on the equation on the left, and I've got a 4x and a y on the right. Well, the y is already by itself. So I'm going to start with this equation right here, and I'm going to get y by itself. So right now, this 4y or the 4x is getting subtracted from the y. So I need to get the y by itself. So I'm going to do the opposite of that subtraction, and I'm going to add 4x on both sides. So the 4x on the left is going to cancel, leaving me with y is equal to -6 plus 4x. Now, I have two unknowns in this equation, so I can't really do any more than that. But what that does allow me to do is it allows me to take that equation and sub in for y in my other equation. So what I get there is, I'm going to move that down here so I have more room, is I'm going to get 3x minus 2, and I'm going to show, without doing any simplification, the exact substitution, -6 plus 4x, into that equation. I'm going to equal 7. You have to do that, especially when you're working with physics problems, because showing that substitution is often what earns points. Eventually, you'll get to problems where it's part A, part B, part C of a free response question, and they'll know you'll have made a mistake. So they stop tracking correct answers and just start tracking correct substitutions. Because if you have to use an old answer in the next part and that old answer is wrong, you can still get full credit for later parts. So you have to be very, very careful with your substitutions. The more you show, the more likely it is that you'll get lots of points or maybe even full points with an incorrect answer. So the 3x is going to stay. My next step is to distribute the -2 to both terms in the parentheses. So I'm going to get 3x minus 2 times -6. Once again, I'm not going to do any math at this point. I'm just going to show that distribution. Okay, minus 2 times 4x. And that is going to equal 7. So all I did was show that I'm multiplying both terms in the middle. So now I'm going to simplify that down. So I'm going to get 3x is not equal to, sorry. So -2 times a -6 is a +12. -2 times 4 is a -8, plus the x goes there, is equal to 7. So now I'm going to group like terms. I'm going to get the 3x minus 8x. That's going to give me -5x. Plus 12 is equal to 7. And then I'm going to move the 12 to the other side. So in order to do that, it's being added. So I'm going to subtract -12 on both sides. So the -12 is going to cancel over here on the left. So we get -5x is equal to 7 minus 12. Well, when I do the 7 minus the 12, that's equal to, what is that? Oh, -5. Sorry, brain went dead for a sec. So then one thing I do notice is that I have negatives on both sides, so I can basically cancel out those negatives. And that gives me 5x is equal to 5. It doesn't matter what step you do it in, but the negatives do cancel. And I'm going to divide both sides by 5 to get x by itself. So the 5 cancels on the left. 5 divided by 5 is just 1. So this tells me that x is equal to 1. So now I know the value of x, but I still need the value of y. So I'm going to take my x, I'm going to plug it back into my other equation. So I have y is equal to -6 plus 4, and now I'm going to replace the x with a 1. Okay, I'm going to make it very clear, very easy to follow. If you notice, one thing that I have done is because I have to do several different things in different orders, I've made it so that I use arrows to trace the path because someone else is going to have to follow your work. And if you have to move around on your paper because maybe you didn't leave enough room or you try one thing and then you have to go back and do another, you need a roadmap. So using those arrows, circling your steps is a really good way to provide a roadmap so you can go back and figure out what you did and someone else can figure out what you did. So I'm going to simplify that down. Y is equal to -6. 4 times 1 is 4. -6 plus 4 is just a -2. So my solution is x equals 1 and y equals -2. But I always want to check because I will tell you that doing these problems, even I will make mistakes while working on answer keys for your packets. So you always want to check to make sure that your answer makes sense. So how do I do that? And you're going to need to do this on your answers as well. So I just write check right here. And then what you're going to do is you're going to plug your x and y into both equations. So I'm going to start with the one on the left. 3x minus 2y is equal to 7. And I'm going to show directly my substitution of x, which was 1, and y, which is -2. And then I'm going to simplify over here on the left to make sure that it does indeed add up to 7. So 3 times 1 is 3. -2 times -2 is a +4. 3 plus 4 is equal to 7. So that one does work. So then what I need to do is I need to do the same thing with my other equation. So I'm going to write another check here. And you should always check both equations. And I'm going to get -4x plus y is equal to -6. I'm going to always write that equation out before I show my substitutions. So -4x is 1 plus my y is -2, and that's equal to -6. So once again, I don't do any math at this point. I just show my substitutions. Then I simplify. -4 times 1 is -4 plus -2 is going to be a -2. And -4 minus 2 is a -6. So that does actually work. So this is a correct solution because when I plug x and y back in, I get the correct answer. And I will tell you, I made mistakes while working on the answer key. So you need to make sure you check your answers to make sure that they work because I caught mistakes I made that I had to go back and fix. You will catch mistakes that you make if you go back and check. You don't always have time to do that on a test, but if you do, that can save you a lot of hassle.